Look, to go and get a track of what's going on, particularly in the nabtrade community at the moment, Gemma Dale joining us here in the studio. Gemma, it's great to go and see you. How are your clients handling this? I know there's a bit of contrarian flair generally. Have they been selling this week?
It's been quite interesting. The most interesting thing is that people are actually trading. You sort of imagine in this environment, we've had 2 short weeks, we've got another one coming up. You know, it's a nice time to go and do something else, right? Yeah. Not trade, but they're busy. They're really busy. Volumes are surprisingly high for this time of year, and cash is extraordinarily high. So it's another record high for cash. That continues to fascinate me. You know, market, apart from today, has been doing quite astonishingly well, all things considered, and yet they're hoarding cash, waiting for a pullback, which they do tend to do. That contrarian flair is absolutely true. They want to buy stuff at a discount, and they're not finding the discounts they want at the moment. What we're also seeing is a lot of big names that people are very familiar with. They've kind of reached highs last year, retraced pretty aggressively. They're coming back close to those highs, and our guys are trimming really hard. That makes them nervous. You can see them going, I've seen this number before and it didn't hold there very long. I'm getting out.
Right. Okay, so what we have seen throughout the last 6 weeks or so has been massive outperformance by the commodity space. We've seen a couple of nasty red on screen. What does that mean? Are they holding? Are they getting out? What are they doing with like the BHPs, the Rios? What's going on there?
Yeah, so BHP was a massive buy yesterday on a 3% downturn. I mean, it's not exactly a massive pullback, but 3% was enough to see huge buying, but it had been sold before that. People were like, oh, this is looking like a really nice number. It's above $50. It's doing really well. And we saw massive buying around the $36 mark last year. So a lot of people have done really well out of it, and they're happy to trim at this price. Then again, it pulls back a tiny bit and they'll be all over it. So we'll see massive buying today. Absolutely massive. Fortescue still outstrips everything. It's so huge. It's so huge, and it just never goes away. You look to the numbers. You know, it'd be sort of 1 day in 5 where Fortescue doesn't top our numbers. And I find
top, not just top 5.
Top.
Oh, okay.
Top. Day after day after day, and it's fascinating, right? It's been well over 12 months that's been going on. I want to say it's 18 months, and it has been consistently most days. Because that handful of people keep making money, and when it stops, they'll stop, but they're not going to stop until then. They'll keep riding it, and it is fascinating to me. We've never seen anything like that before, where one stock that's not a top 10 stock, you might see it in the banks. We used to see people actively trading banks because there was enough margin in it for them, but to see one stock where they can consistently eke out the gains is fascinating, and it hasn't ended yet.
Yeah, it trades beautifully on the charts. Oh, another thing as well, that future industry is part of the equation as well. Do you think that's gone and got a few other investors excited? Because we know that that has been a very, very hot part of the market recently.
Yeah, it's a good question, but to be honest, the number of people trading it hasn't changed dramatically. So it's still a really tight number who are trading the charts. As you say, it's not, I'm putting a bit of money behind Twiggy Forrest's grand new plan, the Green New Deal or anything like that. That's not what they're doing. They're trading this because they're making short-term profits out of it. They're not looking for the future, although it may be part of it, but it's not. It's not a big part.
Well, a stock that's regularly up the top or down the bottom of the ASX has to be Megaport. Like it's just beaten up and then it rallies and beaten up. Currently, it's on the beaten up side. What do you see on your platform then?
Yeah, so 20% pullback. That's the kind of number our guys really like. Interestingly enough, BHP, that's 3%. That's enough for them. Right. But 20%, that's fabulous. They really like that. So huge buying yesterday. And Bank of Queensland's the other one where they got hit hard last week. Disappointing result. Everyone's been all over it. It's been a huge week, 90+% buys, people really enthusiastically getting into it. It'll drift away quite quickly. We can see it drifting now already, but it was exciting. It needs to have those big swings though for people to get on it.
I think half the population's been in an airport or a queue at Sydney Airport, in my case, the last couple of weeks. What's been going on with the tourism and travel stocks? Has there been any big movement? Because we've seen a lot of activity in that space, it seems.
Yeah, so fascinating. We also spend a lot of time in queues, and I think we all have strong views on airlines at the moment and on travel stocks. We saw massive buying of these 2 years ago, and that's what's most interesting, is that stocks that would otherwise have been 1-2% of the portfolio, not particularly widely held, not particularly exciting for people, are now quite widely held, and they have quite a meaningful value behind them because people bought them so cheaply during COVID. If they haven't trimmed already, they trimmed this week. So we saw 90+% selling, Qantas in particular, people going, I've done more than well enough out of that. I don't know how it's going to track from here, given everything that's going on. It's a good time for me to get out. Had a little pop.
So let's look at international stocks, and I think everyone talked about Netflix this week. I mean, we've got sticky customers, toddlers and teenagers, but clearly people are dropping out. Netflix expects more to drop out. Have they lost the edge, and are people voting with their dollars?
I find this super interesting. What I find most interesting about this is a mainstream story. It's not a business story, it's a mainstream story. Every single news outlet was carrying Netflix subscriber numbers, which is an unusual thing, right, for people to be carrying as a mainstream news story. So none of our traders or investors would have missed that story unless they literally didn't pick up their phones or turn on the news or pick up a newspaper. And yet Tesla was still 3 times the value traded. So it hasn't attracted enough interest. That tells me either Netflix was never something they were interested in, or people are fairly concerned that they can't turn this around, that selling advertising is just not going to attract any new subscribers. It's not going to change anything going on. Maybe you can't have 8 households on your one subscription and all the other challenges that they're going to deal with. And also you have to keep producing incredibly high quality content that costs a fortune, and you can't increase your prices and so on. I think people have a really good understanding of those challenges, and they're not buying it. They're not buying a 35% dip. That's unusual for our guys. They're clearly not keen.
Yeah, not willing to go and catch a falling knife potentially. It's, we'll see what happens. We spoke about Tesla. Can I ask anything exciting involving Twitter? Because we know that that's where Elon Musk's attention has been really devoted to the last couple of weeks.
It's not there, which is really interesting in itself. It never has been. It has not been one of the exciting stocks for our guys. They might use it, small number of them, but they certainly aren't buying it, and they're not buying it now either.
So they're on Twitter, they're listening to Netflix, but they're not trading the stocks.
No. I will use it because it's very good value for me as a consumer, but I will not buy it because as an investor, that is not good for me.
Oh, goodness, lots of fun here. Thank you so much, Gemma. Always put lots of colour on the week that was.